A very warm good morning, Class 8, and welcome to today's social science class. So, in our last class, which was also a live class, we discussed about soil as an important natural resource. So, we had a very detailed discussion on how soil is formed, about the importance of soil. Then, we also talked about the ways through which soil conservation can be done, and also the various techniques through which we can conserve and save the soil from further degradation. So today in this class we are going to discuss on water as another important natural resource which is of vital importance for human beings and for all living organisms to survive on earth. So, before moving on to today's discussion, I would like to show you the learning outcome for today. So, once you watch today's video, once you go through the PPT today, you will be in a position to understand the need of water as an important natural resource. Next, you will be able to assess the problems of water availability. You will get to know why water, especially fresh water, is very difficult to access. And lastly, you will learn about the various ways, the various methods through which water can be conserved. So let's begin with today's class. So, three-fourths of the Earth's surface is covered with a vital renewable natural resource. And this vital renewable natural resource is water. So, three-fourths, that means majority of the Earth's surface is covered with water. So, oceans alone cover about two-thirds of the Earth's surface. And these oceans, they support a rich variety of plant and animal life, aquatic plant and animal life. But of course, these ocean waters are of no importance for human beings because they are saline. The water that you basically get in the ocean, you basically get in the sea, that is saline. And since it is saline, which means it is salty, since it is salty, so human beings cannot use to drink it. So human consumption of saline water is impossible, because of which oceans and seawater do not provide us the amount of water which is required for us to live a healthy life. So remember one thing, students, fresh water accounts for only 2.7%. And out of these 2.7%, around 70% of fresh water occurs in ice sheets and glaciers in Antarctica, Greenland, and the other mountainous regions. But of course, we do not have access to all these places because of its location on Earth. And therefore, it is only 1% of the fresh water that is available for human beings, and only 1% of fresh water is accessible, and hence it is useful for human consumption. So fresh water is a very, very, very scarce natural resource, and that is why it is said that we should always use water judiciously. So while saying about the judicious use of water, it is necessary for you to understand that water cannot be added nor can it be subtracted from the earth. The volume of water will always remain as it is. And this happens because of a phenomena which is known as the water cycle. So the water that is present in the earth is in constant motion. It's like a cycle where the oceans, the air, the land, they all have a very important role to play. And they play the role through three things, that is, evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. So, let us quickly move on to the next slide to understand this phenomena of water cycle better. So, if you look at the picture carefully, you will see that the sun heats up the water bodies on Earth. So, when the water bodies are heated up, then it causes the water to move up to the atmosphere in the form of steam or gas. That means liquid water, when it gets heated up, it moves up in the atmosphere in the form of water vapor or in the gaseous state. So when evaporation takes place, then together many droplets of water or lots of vapor, they come together and they form clouds. This is called condensation. So these clouds, after the process of condensation, when it gets heavier, then it comes down back to the earth in the form of rainfall or in the form of snow. And this is called precipitation. Then again, when through precipitation the water comes back on the earth, then again it gets heated up. It gets evaporated, it gets condensed, it gets precipitation, and finally it comes back again. So it is a cycle. So this cycle or this water cycle, as we say, this is a continuous cycle. It keeps on happening every day, and therefore water never can get I mean, it cannot get vanished. Water will always remain. The volume of water will always remain the same. And that happens because of this continuous cycle, which is known as the water cycle, which basically has got three steps. First, evaporation, that means moving of liquid water in the form of steam. Then, condensation, that means forming of semi solid substance in the form of clouds. And finally, when the clouds become too heavy, unable to hold any other droplets of gas or droplets of water vapor, then it precipitates. It comes down on the earth back in the form of rain or snow, and it gets mixed up with the water. It gets mixed up with the water bodies on earth. And again, this cycle, it continues, as I told you. So this is the water cycle. So this brings us now to the next slide. And in the next slide, that is in this slide that I'm showing you, we will be discussing about the importance or the usage of water by human beings for various purpose. So we all know that human beings use huge amount of water for drinking and washing. But along with that, even in the process of production, especially in agriculture, industries, etc., water is required in huge amount. So generating electricity through the reservoirs of dams, etc., these are all great things that we need, and for these water is essential. So water is used so much and in almost all spheres of life that the demand of fresh water is becoming more and more. But of course, the supply of fresh water is becoming less. So demand for water is more because there is population growth, there is increased demand for food and cash crops, there is more and more urbanization, that means people moving from rural areas to urban areas, then people's standards of living, people's way of living, these all are leading to shortage of water supply. And since there is these problems and since there is shortage of water supply, therefore water needs to be conserved, because human beings and all other living organisms need water to exist. Without water we will cease to live. So water is used everywhere, as is already mentioned here, and because of its huge usage, the demand for fresh water is becoming more and more, and the supply of fresh water is becoming less and lesser. And that is why it is necessary that we do not do pollution and we take up steps, we take up methods through which water can be conserved. So let us quickly move on to understand about the various problems of freshwater availability. So most parts of the world, they are facing shortage in freshwater supply, as I already told you. So there are some certain countries which are located in very climatic zones, and the climatic zones are very susceptible to drought means when where places are very dry, like the deserts. So in desert areas where there is no rainfall, then there is great problem of water scarcity. Water shortage may also be a result of the variations in seasonal or annual precipitation. Precipitation means rainfall. So sometimes we may have heavy rainfall, sometimes we may have less rainfall. So because of this change also, there might be water shortage. And at times, the scarcity of water or shortage of water is also caused due to over exploitation and contamination or pollution of water resources. So these are the problems regarding water availability. Next, very important, conservation of water resources. So, as I told you already, today's major problem in the world is shortage of clean and adequate water resources. So, there should be various steps which are necessary to be taken up to conserve and to save water. So remember, when we started with the first slide, I told you that water is a renewable resource. That means it can be regenerated, but its overuse and population makes it unfit for drinking. And without drinking of water, definitely we will not be alive. So although water is a renewable resource, although it will never get depleted, but it is our duty not to overuse it and not to pollute it. We should save water and save it for our future generations to come as well. Sewage, agricultural chemicals, and industrial waste, they pollute the water with lots of substances like nitrates, metals, and pesticides, which of course make the water polluted. Even forest and other vegetation cover slow the surface runoff and replenish the underground water. So if too much forest and too much vegetation cover is also there, is not there, then also groundwater, that means the water which is available below the earth, that gets replenished. Replenished means it gets diminished. Okay. So another method through which we can save the runoff water is water harvesting. So water harvesting is a very necessary method, which is also known as rainwater harvesting, through which the rainwater is saved for future use. So canals used for irrigation should be properly checked for water loss through seepage and evaporation. So nowadays canals are largely used for the purpose of irrigation, and there might be certain technical issues with the canals. For example, there may be some kind of leakage, there may be some kind of problem with the pipe. So these things have to be checked properly before leaving the water on the fields. Then, as I told you, rainwater harvesting is very important, and rainwater harvesting is the process of collecting rainwater from rooftops and directing it to an appropriate location where it is stored for future use. So it can be a water tank or something. Next, recycling plants should be installed. Recycling plants means recycling factories, industries, they should be installed so that we conserve water and we stop wastage. And lastly, it is very necessary for better irrigation facilities to be developed in order to conserve water. So mere irrigation is only not necessary. We have to make sure that the irrigation facility that we are using, that is also appropriate. So this brings us to the homework. So first of all, you need to give the reasons as to why fresh water is a scarce resource. Then you need to highlight the ways through which water can be conserved, and finally explain the water cycle. So your last date of submission is today itself, that is 25th of August, and you will submit necessarily, compulsorily only on Google Classroom between 8 to 9 p.m. So students, I hope you all understood the entire topic on water. So tomorrow as well we have a class. So tomorrow we will continue with the next part of this chapter that we are doing, and in case of any doubt, you are definitely free to ask me. We will have our next live class on Saturday. So on Saturday I will try to cover up all your doubts. I will try to find solution to all your doubts regarding the topic on water. Okay. So now, before winding up, I would quickly like to remind you regarding the syllabus for your unit test. So for your unit test, you will require lesson number 5 of history, When People Rebel, which we have already completed. And also you will need the current chapter that we are doing from geography, which is land, soil, water, natural vegetation, and wildlife resources. And from this chapter, you will need only 3 topics, that is land, soil, and water. So although we will be continuing with the chapter, with the other topics of the chapter, but still for your unit test, you will require till water. So I hope you are clear about the syllabus, and thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you all understood whatever has been taught. And I repeat again, don't forget to go through your textbook. Go through all the pages which cover the topic water from your textbook. And remember, land, soil, and water from geography lessons are definitely coming along with history lesson number 5. Thank you.